Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff. Thank you all for coming out this afternoon. For those of us who are clients of financial investment institutions, such as Goldman Sachs, we would expect that institution to be honest, ethically responsible, and as straightforward as possible in their dealings with us. However, back in April of 2007, Goldman Sachs was none of those. I recently wrote an informational ethics memo that discusses in detail the events that occurred that April, and it's those events that I will share with you today. I will start by briefly describing what exactly happened that April, as discussed in a Washington Post article by Jeff Gebhart, and then I will discuss the two areas of ethical responsibility as set out by the 7 Pillars Institute for Global Finance and Ethics that Goldman should have followed in this case. The premise is that a hedge fund manager by the name of John Paulson approached Goldman about creating a new type of investment deal known as Abacus. Abacus was an investment centered around a collection of home loans that were picked by Paulson, financed by a company known as ACA Financial Guarantee, and ultimately sold to a German-based bank known as IKB. The problem was that Paulson was carrying out a strategy of betting against the mortgage market, and therefore he picked loans that would go into the investment based on loans that were more likely to default. As a result, when the mortgage market collapsed, so did Abacus, giving rise to the scandal I'm speaking about today. The two areas of ethical responsibility that Goldman failed in this case are conflict of interest and honesty. In this case, Goldman has to serve the best interests of 3 different parties: IKB, Paulson, and itself. It has to be honest with IKB about all the details of the investment, including the fact that it's not a good buy. It must also sell as much of the investment as possible in order to keep it off their books, while giving Paulson a financial instrument to bet against. These 3 goals create a conflict of interest, and therefore Goldman is forced to prioritize the goals and withhold certain information from IKB so that IKB is still willing to purchase the investment. This withholding of certain information is the second area of ethical responsibility. That would be honesty. Even though Goldman argues that IKB should have been aware of all the rest of the investment, Goldman should still have informed them of all the details of the investment. As Kant's moral code states, after all, honesty is a moral obligation. The negative results from this case are twofold. First off, the SEC ended up charging Goldman with civil fraud and suing them for $550 million, which Goldman settled in April of last year. Secondly, Goldman's CEO established a business standards oversight committee responsible for scrutinizing complex, high-risk investments such as Goldman was. The conclusion that can be reached by all this is that Goldman was essentially acting irresponsibly towards all parties involved. They might have allowed somebody with less of an investment in the mortgage market to pick the home loans that would go into Abacus, or they might have refused Paulson altogether. In the end, they essentially had to ask themselves, was such a high-risk investment really worth it for such small profit? That concludes my presentation today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening.